Today I want to talk a little bit about energy drinks and caffeine, specifically in cubing and speed solving. I find energy drinks really fascinating because they sort of cornered a lot of markets I never would have expected them to. Red Bull, as an example, is super famous for sponsoring extreme sports, and actually back when I was competing in slacklining, most of the events that I would go to would have either Red Bull sponsorship, or they would have people just showing up with like free fridges full of Red Bull for everybody who was spectating, performing, like involved in any way. And that's really bizarre to me because carbonated beverages usually don't do very well for competitive athletes. If you took a can of Red Bull to like any well-established sport with some good money behind it and asked the coaches or physios or nutritionists, like, should my athlete be taking this? The answer is going to be hell no every single time. And yet Red Bull somehow has managed to corner the market and establish itself as the drink of the extreme sports world. And maybe even if the competitors aren't drinking it, it's still the thing that shows up all the time. So today I want to talk about my thoughts around energy drinks in competition. Do they actually help your performance in the way that we think that they do? We'll talk about the two kind of big ingredients there. There's the sugar and the caffeine. I want to explore, do they actually work in the moment? Over a long period of time, I think the answer is definitely not. It's not a sustainable thing to keep putting into your body and expect your body to be able to perform well over time. But what about a one-off? What about when you really need that boost of energy? Is it going to be helpful for you? And since I've just landed myself for a competition tomorrow, I'm going to test this out for myself and find out, do I specifically perform better when I'm consuming energy drinks? Caffeine is interesting because most of us associate caffeine as the thing that wakes us up in the morning. And when you think of something that wakes you up, usually you associate that with something that gives you energy. But with caffeine, it's actually a little bit different. So the way that caffeine works in your brain is it basically blocks a chemical called adenosine in your brain. And that doesn't actually give you any extra energy. Adenosine is basically the chemical that makes you feel tired. And caffeine basically just stops this adenosine from getting to the part of the brain that, when it switches on, makes you feel that sensation of tiredness. So what you could say with caffeine is, rather than giving you energy, it just wipes away the tiredness that you should be currently feeling based on the amount of this one hormone that's in your body. And that might sound pretty great, but you're not actually getting rid of it completely. And while you're going throughout your day after consuming the caffeine, your brain is still producing more of the adenosine as you go. This adenosine is just going to build up and up and up, and eventually when the caffeine starts to wear off, you are going to crash hard. And so that's why one of the big things that you need to think about if you're choosing to use caffeine when it comes to competing in competition, number one, it's not going to replace sleep. So if you're not sleeping well, you're not getting any additional benefit from having the caffeine in your system. And then the second side of that is that the more adenosine you're blocking out, the harder you are going to crash when your time is up. If it's a 2-day competition, then obviously you run the risk of losing out on even more sleep quality if caffeine levels carry on too far into the night. Now we get on to the sugar part, and this is where it gets much more interesting, because we kind of think of these days of sugar as like the bad guy of everything. There's too much sugar in everything, and so we probably should be avoiding everything that has sugar in it. All of the other kind of carbonated drinks are going to, zero, so zero sugar. They've got something else that sweetens it, but it's not sugar. But we've actually got things a little bit twisted when it comes to sugar itself. Your brain actually requires glucose to function. Its primary source of energy, in fact, its only source of energy, is glucose. And if you don't have any glucose in your system, your brain has to work extra hard to figure out how to get some. Usually what it does is it will break up fat and turn it into glucose so that it can then use it. Making it harder for your brain to get energy is not ideal in any kind of competitive or sport situation. When it comes to sport, and especially anything that raises your stress levels higher than normal, sugar is actually going to be your friend. Anything closer to a purer form of sugar is much easier to give you that energy boost when it comes to competition and performance. So that one should be a little bit of a win for energy drinks because they are absolutely loaded with sugar. Again, there's a little bit of a problem with this in terms of the dosing. Anything that has a kind of high glycemic index basically means it's going to get into your bloodstream much more quickly, much more powerfully, and it's going to cause your body's insulin levels to spike pretty wildly. The more of these kind of big spikes you get in a day, the worse that's going to be for your body overall, because it is going to change what's going on with your circulatory system. You know, more sugar means it needs to be delivered to more places all at once. If it's getting delivered to lots of different places that it's not actually needed, that is going to make as much of a mess on the inside of you as covering your entire room with energy drink and not cleaning it up for several days. So something with a much higher sugar content, like an energy drink, while it might actually give you a short spike and boost in your performance, just like with caffeine, it runs this long-term risk of seeing things plummet and tank pretty quickly because the brain realizes that it's actually made a mistake and it's tried to overcompensate for an energy need that it didn't really have. And once again, that leaves us with a summary that even for the sugar content of energy drinks, maybe it might be kind of useful. Again, coming up to a big final that you need some extra focus for. It's probably not going to be a very good solution long term. And actually, when it comes to sugar content, things like fruits are pretty well designed to give you a glucose boost that will last for a lot longer with a lot less of the downsides overall. So that's my thoughts. I kind of want to give a little bit of an objective view on this one because I know lots of people really enjoy cubing with energy drinks and stuff like that. My goal is not to force anybody to change their minds. It's just kind of to lay things out so people understand and can relate these kind of things in your practice. So with that little disclaimer out of the way, time to try it out for myself. All right, competition day. When I said I was going to try out doing this with energy drinks, I kind of recorded that bit separately so that I had the option not to do it. But it's kind of fitting because I have slept terribly. This room is just a load of crap. So there's been noise, people coming in and out the entire night. I don't know how many people are using this building, but there is no noise reduction whatsoever. So we're going to literally get to test out everything I was talking about. Okay, so competition was yesterday. How did it go? Let's take a look at some of the highlights. It was basically exactly everything that we described. I kind of had this naive hope when I woke up, like once I actually woke up with a bad night's sleep, kind of went, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is going to do me some good. But I was the same sleep-deprived idiot both before and after the energy drinks. The only difference was I seemed a lot more confident about being a sleep-deprived idiot the further and further into the day that I got. There was a sweet spot where I felt the most kind of awake, alert, and optimized. I think that was at the end of can 2, but it definitely didn't match with any outstanding performance. The one thing I was impressed with was that my multi-blind results didn't suffer. I got a 14 out of 18, which is pretty average for me at the moment, but I've definitely proved to myself at least that this is not something I want to do taking forward. But that's my opinion. Let me know what you think. Do you use energy drinks regularly? What do you think of them? How do you feel after? I feel absolutely horrible today. I don't know if you can tell by my voice. Yeah, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.